or something, date, maybe.
No, I have
knows.
no idea. And he's deceased, so I can't ask him yet.
Yeah, not yet. The B-52, I had a guy, where's the gentleman asking me questions out there about B-52 history, are you in here? Yes, sir. That's good information. We have, the only way I get, I'm currently the chief of safety for our reserve bomb wing, so I have a lot of information over the years for things that's happened in the B-52 and all that stuff. But this airplane's been around for a long time with a lot of different models, and I just can't keep up with all the things that go on. Plus, I'm also the crew resource management instructor for all B-52. So CRM, I'm not sure if anybody's ever heard it. So I teach that, and teaching that is basically telling, hey, you have a problem with the jet, you have a book that tells you how to work it. But if you have a problem with the crew members or whatever else in the airplane, you don't really have a book that helps you. Okay, well, so-and-so is experienced fatigue. Well, you go to that book, okay, page 3, it says crew member experiencing fatigue. There is nothing like that. So that's what CRM's about. So I teach that to, there's only 2 bases now, Barksdale and Minot that have B-52. So I teach all the aircrew members every 2 years or less the CRM. But through that, it gives me, being in the safety world and being a CRM instructor and a risk management instructor, it allows me to look at a lot of those previous accidents we've had in the B-52 over the years, even for the ones that we had before I was even a glimmer in my daddy's eye, right? There was something else I wanted to talk about. Somebody mentioned, and now it lost me. It'll come back to me.
Let me ask these guys a question, if you don't mind.
Where are you at? Yes.
So, first of all, I do want to say that I think the B-52 has been for decades the most feared airplane in the world, if I'm not mistaken. Just carpet bombing like crazy. But you guys, how many gallons of fuel do you put on that thing?
On average, for our training stories, we do anywhere from 200,000 to 130,000 pounds.
Pounds. And translate that to gallons for everybody, divided by 6-ish?
Something like that, do your
It's
math.
divided by
You got a
6.7.
calculator on your
Yeah.
smartphone.
Yeah.
6.7.
How many tires are you changing on average a day over here?
We try not to. We've been actually going into a slowdown with our supply, so we've been pushing our tires out to
So you're
fabricate.
making tires last longer, that's good. But how many tires are on that airplane?
10 in total, 8 main landing gear, and then two on the in wings.
Okay. How many gallons of oil?
41.
21 gallons of
No,
oil.
I'm sorry, 41 quarts.
41 quarts.
41 times 8 engines. Again, math.
Okay.
It's a lot of oil.
Your longest flight, nonstop?
I want to say it was 21 and a half, which is really small. I flew out of here, went to Guam, a couple of air refuelings in flight, and then we had like a 3 or 4 hour exercise we were participating in when we got there before we could land. Yeah, my longest combat, I'll actually mention it tonight at the banquet, is like 18 and a half or something like that.
So he just said you were putting 21,000 gallons on, or pounds?
We can put up to 240,000 pounds.
240,000 pounds, and you're doing air refueling.
Yeah. Because if I put 70,000 pounds of weapons on there, I can't put as much fuel because I have a 488,000 pound max load. So I can go a long way if I don't have any weapons on there, but I'm a B-52, so I gotta have weapons, right? So that means I have to have air refueling. I know what it was I was gonna say. So we're going from a 5 to a 4 person crew eventually. That's in the works right now. They're getting rid of one of the Wizzos and moving the electronic warfare officer downstairs. So it'll be a 4-man crew like the B-1. Right now
What
we're
other
still.
positions?
What's that?
What other positions?
Pilot, co-pilot. Right now we have the guy. Right now there's 5.
Yeah.
In the future, it'll be 4, it'll be a navigator probably in the left seat, an electronic warfare officer in the right seat, and then upstairs a pilot, co-pilot. But we're also, in a few years after this, we're gonna be getting new engines, which will help the air refueling part. I won't have to do as many air refuelings, because it'll be more of a efficient engine, hopefully. And it turns out, I don't know if you guys heard, this just came out last week, Rolls-Royce got the contract for engines for the B-52. So, we've been using Pratt & Whitney, which is what the B-26 used as well. We've been using Pratt & Whitney. I just came back from Tinker last week. That's our depot, and that's, they were tearing down an engine that we had a severe vibration. I was doing an investigation on. It's been a dependable engine. I'm kind of surprised. I think Pratt & Whitney probably got their feelings hurt on this. I don't blame them. It may not be over. We'll see what happens. You know how contract, contributions and discussions and all that go. We'll see. We're also, at the same time, we get these new engines in about 3 years maybe.
With horsepower.
I don't know. I'm going to have to learn how to fly this airplane with new engines on it, because I can't do this anymore. They're going to say, oh, well, you got to go slow and all this kind of stuff, because you'll hurt the engine's feelings and all that. So I got to learn how to fly this. Not only are we getting new engines, we're getting new radar. So right now we're flying the H model. There's talk that they're going to change. This is going to be an upgrade to the J model. We're going to skip the I, because human factors are in everything, so I's and ones look alike. So we're probably going to the J model B-52 here in a few years, because of the new engines and new radar that's going to happen at the same time. So there you go.
Are those new planes or retrofit?
They'll be retrofit, be the same airplanes. Balls 35, we call it 600035, it's Balls 35. I don't know that they ever did that in the 26, but Balls 35 will have the new engines. So except for this panel, won't be on there. Unless we get shorthanded, Roberta, we may need to call you back, get this turned back.
I'll bring it back, I promise. Just call me. Just call me.
What year was this Boss 35?
I'm gonna let the crew chief answer that.
She was actually created in 1960. That's when she rolled off the line.
1960. And how many upgrades since then?
Don't really know. It's been numerous
lot.
upgrades. Yes, sir.
How do concerns over metal fatigue, how do you test for that? Do you,
Most of this is trial and error. But back when they first designed these things, the initial design was on the back of a napkin. So obviously, 1950 design, a whole lot of wind tunnel tests, and obviously we had aircraft that had bad cracks in the backbone where we had to send off for a couple of years, and we had to retrofit, try to figure out how to strengthen the wing roots because of all the wing flex, because obviously it's large wing, a lot of weight, and gung-ho pilots that like to over-G the wings. Sometimes, not saying them, you probably did at some point.
Is there a back shop test for that, like an NDI inspection that it goes through or something?
That starts with
Stress,
that.
Yes.
metal stress?
Now, do you mean like 10, 11 or Balls 11?
Yes,
Had that?
10,
One of them? Yeah, it went down to Kelly at San Antonio for a long time for that wing root issue. And I don't know what all they did to it, but I'll tell you, cracks are very important when you got an airplane this
Real
old.
name is Theodore.
And we've had some, not as bad as the wing root cracks. Those are bad, because that's like the frame of your car. We've had flat track cracks. Y'all heard some of those. We had 1017, 1029, both had some. We actually had one of those. The depot team had to come out from Oklahoma City, fix that. The other one wasn't as bad, but they allowed a one-time flight out of Barksdale
No.
to go to Tinker and let them fix it up there. But it was flat track stuff. It's not the frame of the airplane, but it is an important part of the frame of the wing, if you will. So that stuff's happening to this airplane, but it's still, we're getting our money's worth, for sure. Yeah.
So you're,
Well, he's-
you're
he's
combat
just
ready,
retired.
right?
So since I'm in a formal training unit,
No.
you mean me personally?
Well, I'm talking about,
The B-52? Oh,
Yes, the B-52s could be sent to combat.
yes.
All right, so,
All of them can. For us, it would take a little more because our B-52s, this one is, and the other 17, or depending on how you look at it, that the FTU has. It would take a little longer because we have to change out the EW tapes and some other stuff, but we could be gone in a month or less.
well, the question really is, what sort of defense techniques, equipment
He's retired from the Air
uh,
Force.
are available? And I'm assuming that you've got a really big radar signature, so you can't do much about that. But tell us about
I thought I knew what
tell us
we
about
needed.
defense. So what kind of threat are you faced with in the modern world, and then how do you defense it?
We have some systems like and you guys can help me out because they hear them talked about on the radio for the specialists to come out and work on. But the 20 scope and the 172 and what's the other one you always hear, 152 and some of the other things. There are systems, I'm not an EW, so I'm not an expert in it, but there are 3 or 4 systems that the EW has back there. Some of them are going obsolete, and that's part of the reason why they're moving them downstairs. They're going to be losing some of that capability, but they say it's not necessary as much anymore. So these things pick up on. I'm going to sit here and try to act like an EW, but if I start making beeps and squeak sounds, you'll know I'm there. But I really, me not being an EW, we have systems that look for the certain types of threats, either ground or airborne, mostly ground, because airborne B-52 is just a big grape up there. We're going to get shot down. But ground threats, we have surface-to-air missiles, we have a better chance against than we do the air-to-air. And those emit a type of frequency when they're tracking us with radar. When they go optical, it's a little harder, but with the radar types, the EW has electronic threat systems in the back that help him pick up some of those frequencies. And it depicts a threat on a scope, and he's telling me over the radio, I've got an SA2, 3 o'clock, break left or whatever like that. That's about the extent of the details I could go into that, not because they're all classified, but because I'm ignorant in that. I just do what the EW tells me to do. The challenge comes in when I have to do what the navigator tells me to do downstairs, because as an aircraft commander, I'm on a bomb run. The navigator team is trying to get me to the target, and the EW team, which is the one person, is trying to get me away from the target. All right, so it's like my son and daughter. Okay.
It's like a radar threat warning.
Yes, and I'm not going to tell you which one I think is the son and which one I think is the daughter, because that may be too much information.
You mentioned earlier something about, I think you said nighttime television, and I'm a fighter guy. That's the same thing as a what's a targeting pod, nav pod, lantern.
Yes, it's similar to that, but now that is they're not supporting those the low light televisions anymore, right? And so they're like disposable now. And the FLIR is, I think, still supported, right? But the low light television, which is a great thing, because when you're looking through clouds, it looked different looking through the low light television than it did the FLIR. When you're looking through clouds and weather and things like that.
FLIR, everybody's forward-looking infrared, so that's just a way to look through.
Yep, so your sheriff's departments, your police departments that have those on the helicopters, in the bigger cities and things, that's a great technology. That's a great piece of equipment right there.
Can you detect troops, special ops troops?
with like FLIR well, with pod I can. With pod they can, now, not the pilots, because I'm a bus driver. Turn left, turn right. I don't have all, they don't give me too much information. Yes, but with pod, they can zoom in and look at a lot of stuff with the pod video.
If you look at the picture of that B-52, there's two things on the bottom and the front. Those are your pods, right?
Yes, sir.
So those pods, those little tube-looking things in the front, have electronics in them that do infrared and vision-looking things.
No, so, I think the little nodules at the bottom, one is the forward-looking infrared, and one is the low-light television. The pod, I want to say I think it's on the video.
It's on the video, but it's on the right wing.
Right wing. And when we go do the 10 o'clock tomorrow, hopefully there's a pod. You know if there's a pod on. Okay.
Pod's a different term. I was the fighter guy. Pods, we actually hung the pods, which were those similar things. Okay, that's a different.
Now, was that a laser designating pod? So you're a recent fighter.
No. That was 16 years ago.
What
We
was
hung
the pod? What was on the pod?
Target pod, nav pod. I had one.
Oh, okay.
Infrared.
Like the lander.
Yeah,
Oh,
lander.
they're all interchangeable with fighters and a lot of NATO. They all have the same targeting pods now.
Yeah, so, technology this is an old airplane that they have plugged a lot of, can you hear me okay?
What's that?
They, even though it's an old platform, they have advanced the technology on this thing because they need to get more use out of it. Because the B-1, I'm going to take the high road on this. You know why we take the high road, right? Because it's less traveled. It's a bit in better shape, right? The B-1, a great aircraft, but there's been challenges. All right. It came out in the 80s or whatever, and they're already sending them to the boneyard, the current models. So, the B-52 is doing their thing, and we're getting the money's worth out of it. But it's an older airplane, but they have ways of increasing the technology on it to include the targeting pod. I'll talk a little bit more about it maybe tonight in the brief, but we have moving map in there now. Just like you put the GPS on your phone, or if you guys remember the Garmin's we used to put on the dash of your vehicle that, okay, there's my car and the road's coming up. We got that in the airplane now, so it's great. Anyway, what else we got?
Anybody else? Anybody? Crazy questions about B-52s?
I'm not trying to take over.
Yes.
Let's say you got to scramble, you got to get in the air as quickly as possible. How do you get 8 engines started as quickly as possible?
So in each 8 of the engines, we have very similar to B-26 in the old World War II, the cartridge starts. Back when it used to be like a little shotgun shell. You have fire, spin the starter. We have something similar. It's about the size of a Folgers coffee can that's full of basically black powder, gunpowder, and it burns like a bottle rocket. And it spins our starter, and hopefully, if everything goes right, it's started within 60 seconds. So from the moment they scramble and say klaxon's on, and we need to get in the air, they can be in the air within 5 minutes.
Are those alert? Do you have alert aircraft? Or is that-
We do not do alert anymore. We used to do alert back in the Cold War, and the active duty still practices.
How many of those do you have of those cartridges sitting around? All of them, or?
All of them. All of them.
I got one. Back in my day, they used to pull ORIs with you guys. They still do that?
Do they call them lower eyes anymore?
Well, there's still ORIs and there's still OREs. It depends on which ones they want to do. Like if they want to play Cold War, they'll pull an ORE, which is an operational readiness exercise, which is we go out and we play Air Force, which we're already doing, but we heighten the levels up and make it look like it's realistic.
They send the tankers with you too?
Yes, sir.
That makes a big noise.
And then the inspections, they just go around and look at all our stuff and see how we do things, and they'll judge us on that and then send the report down after everything's done.
No, I'm talking about maybe you guys scramble.
That's the OREs. That's where they'll do all the scrambles.
That's more the active duty, second bomb wing and the 5th bomb wing.
That's-
The combat coded folks, and we're training coded. Are you at one of the combat ones now, or?
I was part of the 96 for a year. I came back down with them.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm back in the seven.
So we got active duty, so our unit that we three support is training coded. So we don't do the ORIs and OREs, but when we were combat coded and the units that are combat coded, they're doing that. They're still doing it. Yes, sir.
How fun is it to land one of those at a crosswind?
It's not as fun as it would be if I didn't have the truck that could turn, okay? Because like the B-26, my wingspan is longer than my fuselage is. But not to the point where in the B-26, you should have been able to still dip a wing into the wind, land one main gear, and then drop it down. I can't do that because 185 feet wingspan, when I'm dipping a wing into the wind, if I wasn't able to turn my trucks down the runway and keep my nose in the wind, when I dip that wing down, the tip gear is going to be the only thing that touches the runway. The main gear's not even going to touch it. So I have, I usually exaggerate it, but you're landing down the runway like this in the wing, but I'm wings level because I turn my crosswind. You can go to YouTube and see a lot of examples of how that works if you just put B-52 crosswind takeoff landing or whatever in there. It's a lot of that stuff. It really is a great capability for us because of the wingspan.
On Sunday, come out and watch, I was at home, so you could watch it.
Yeah.
Land, and it was really strange to see a plane come in like this and then hit it and straight right out.
Yeah, it's a great capability because if I ever have to land somewhere where I really don't want to, but I have to, you never know what the winds are going to be like, and that's really nice to be able to do that.
Didn't you use, were there B-52s at Altus Air Force Base?
I don't
think it's not about this.
I don't believe so.
What was the big thing they had there?
I think they were B-36
It was-
and maybe the B-29 at that time.
Yeah.
Well, this has been within the last, 15, 20 years?
It may have been more like a,
Was it the B-1?
no, it'd be more like the KC-135,
I don't know, but they were
maybe
big.
C-17,
They were huge.
yeah.
Oh, must be the E4 now. Altus is is a strategic, basically what used to be SAC. That's basically where the E4s, the Doomsday planes, the big 747s that look kind of like Air Force One. Basically, if we ever go into contingencies where we're attacked or think we're about to be attacked, we'll send basically airborne White Houses into the sky and they'll stay airborne for as long as possible.
Y'all know where George Bush went on 9/11, right?
Yeah,
Here.
I've seen a few pictures. I was working on my shed love you. I was working on my shed on 9/11, and I came in I just moved to the house, and I came in for a water break or whatever, and sat down when one of the first tower was already on fire, smoking, and they're like, they're talking about we heard reports of the airplane ran into it, and I'm thinking, that's happened a few times, usually smaller airplanes. I think Austin had one of those by accident. No, that may have been on purpose. But yeah, they had some other things that maybe were on accident or whatever. But when I saw the second plane live go in, I knew something was going on. And it wasn't so I was done with the shed, working on the shed that day. And watched it the rest of the day, and I heard fighters overhead, and I'm like, I'm sitting there watching the news saying all traffic has been closed down across the U.S., air traffic, and I'm hearing, I can tell, after listening to airplanes for a while, I can usually tell what type of airplane it is just from listening to what it is. And there was F-16s escorting the president here, and I told the wife, I said, I think that's probably somebody important, because otherwise nobody else is flying across the U.S. except here in you know, Shreveport, America, you know. Interesting, though. We had the space shuttle come through here a few times as well. Yeah, this is like an alternate, when they would land in, what is it, California, this would be a place where they attach it to the 747 and milk its way back down to, I guess Houston, or not Houston, yes, thank you.
So on a longer flight, what is your economy cruise altitude, and how high would you ever want to go?
38 to 42 is gonna be where I get my best fuel efficiency out of.
How high can you go?
I can go to 50. That's not like the operating ceiling, but I've never been there. I think I've been to 45, it's the closest. It's uncomfortable at 45.
Why is it uncomfortable?
Because if I'm dropping bombs at 45, and I'm going as fast as I can, but I'm also maneuvering, expecting threats, because truth be known, there are threats that can get to me at 45 in some countries. I can't maneuver hardly at all. And that thing I was telling you about, like this, even the Pratt & Whitney TO-33 does not like me to go too fast like that, all right? It wants me to milk it, because it will cough and sputter and spit, and it will cuss you bad. And then when I get damage on the airplane, guess what I got to deal with when I land? So I don't like being at 45. Most of in Afghanistan, over Afghanistan and over Iraq, 38,000 feet was a good mid number, because we typically, we could go into some rings that could reach us at 38, but we were looking for seed support, the suppression of enemy air defenses. Did I say that right? Fighter right? Okay. See, and I want that support when I go into those places if I can. But at any rate, 38's a good, comfortable for fuel as well.
I know it was on the video, but how did you feel when they came to you and said, we're gonna name it Flak?
Well, yeah, so
Mike,
just like them, I
Mike.
didn't really, just like these guys said, initially, they didn't really know the overall history of Flak bait, and I'm like, oh, well, okay. I'm good with it though, because I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna hear it. I keep telling you, I don't have to talk tonight, because I'm pretty much covering everything I'm gonna talk about. These guys, this is their airplane I get to borrow, so they can name it whatever they want. I don't care. All right, and but I do respect how my guys have come to this point to pick this one. They could not have picked a better name. I'm going to be honest with you. But when initially, to your answer, you know, I thought, wow, okay, Flak bait, I'm good with that. Let's do it. And it's interesting what now that I've done a lot of research and everything, that what it came up to mean. So there's a reason for everything. And I tell you, we have to reflect, and that's why I'm glad this society exists. And that's why I kind of asked you earlier, hey, are there other airplane societies? Because I really don't know. Too busy, you know, going doing my job every day now that I don't get to look at all the other societies that you know, reflect back on the history of their airplanes. But it's good to do that, because we really do need. History's always bound to repeat itself, right? So we really have to reach back and reflect on where we've been, and I'm glad Flak bait's part of us now. So hopefully it'll stay there at least as long as these guys want to keep it there.
You know, the aircraft's one thing, and of course we're here for the aircraft, but one thing we're honoring still are these first-gen guys who flew in those airplanes. Jerry's here. We do have another gentleman here that'll be here at dinner tonight. He took a break for the afternoon. He'll be at dinner tonight. Williamson. We normally have a few others that couldn't travel this year. But you guys have heard the history of the current flak bait, where it's at, the status it's at? If you ever, as a younger kid, went to the Smithsonian, you could have seen that picture right there in person, the actual flak bait cockpit.
So how long has it been there? Because I went to that Smithsonian, it must have still been in a box somewhere.
It's not there now, but it was there for many years until 2016 or 17.
Which is
Yeah.
part of the Smithsonian.
Well, no, that's the one that I went, that's where the Enola Gay is. So it's where the Enola Gay is.
Now so is flak bait, but they took it out of the Smithsonian in the mall, just a cockpit, and they're refurbishing it back into an airplane at the other facility.
I would love, and I know we talked about it, we need to do some measurements of runways. I don't know how big Dulles is, but I would love to take an airplane there if we could, and especially maybe when and if they get
Park them
that.
side by side.
Yeah, if they get that airplane built, you know, that'd be great.
There's another gentleman here, I don't know where Pat's at. Pat Rogers is in the middle of, there he is. He's refurbishing 2 B-26s. It'll be the 6th and 7th in the world that will be able to be seen and touched in actual airplane status. He has 2 of them out in California.
Where did you get them from? Or do I ask? Is that you? eBay.
Don't laugh.
My research showed a lot have been destroyed, so good for you.
I got 2 that were damaged in crash landings and illusions. And then the third one is the later, actually it's only about 14 tail numbers off from Flak bait. Belongs to the Pima Air Museum in Tucson.
Okay.
And by the way, he gave a presentation today, so if you want to see the status, they're actually not just in pieces. They're actually pretty well, somewhat put together, so.
You gonna fly them? Are they gonna be fly? Okay, so you just static on them. That's probably smart.
Very smart.
Very good. That's interesting.
What'd you say?
Very smart. He said very smart.
You guys used to do it all the time.
All right, any more questions for these guys? We stole all his information for dinner. Now he's got to come up with some new jokes for
Nah,
tonight.
I got a few.
Keep us entertained.
Gems. What position did we fly over here?
I don't know if you saw his jacket. He's got
Wait,
an
hey,
MD 109
just asked you a question.
on his jacket because
Just
he
asked-
actually shot down a Messerschmitt
Oh,
from
boy.
a gunner position.
Uh-oh, that's a fighter.
Yeah.
Because my speech only talks about the Japanese boat and the enemy transport. So good for you. Which one were you shooting out of?
Well,
Which
actually, it was
turret?
a top turret, but it was it was not no skill, none whatsoever on my part. The German pilot was stupid. We had no guns firing on our aircraft, so he came up alongside of me. I had the top turret. He was at 9 o'clock, very close. I could see the pilot clearly. A couple bursts, and he got the pilot.
Were you 16 years old when you did that?
No, I was 18.
If you look at his jacket as well, he's got 61 missions in a B-26. Yeah. And Willie, you'll meet the other guy,
Yeah,
flew
64.
65. And his story, when you talk to Willie tonight, he flew 64 missions. The limit was 65. After 65, you go home. And he'll tell you, he's 64 missions and never got shot at. And he was also a gunner or maintenance guy. And on the 65th mission, he got shot down. Had his bags packed, ready to go back to New York. And on the 65th, and he spent 7 months as a POW. So,
He shouldn't have packed his bags. See? So, I was a prior navigator before I became, in the B-52 before I became a pilot. And I went to school in Pensacola, Florida, for a navigator school. At that time, 98, we had Germans down there that were going through school with us. How's that feel to you?
Oh,
When my dad went to pilot training, he had Iranians in pilot training with him. When I went to nav school, I had Germans in there with me. When I went to pilot training, I had Italians and Japanese. Isn't that interesting? How we make that?
He's got a great story about Germans for you.
While we were flying over Stuttgart, we got the hell shot out of us. And there's a bit more story to that, and I won't do it. But the main part of the story was in 1985, I was retracing my steps of World War II. I had finished going through Sardinia and Corsica and France, and it was on the train to go to Berlin to see if I could find my two cousins. On the train were two German men, both of whom spoke good English. They asked me what I was doing, and I was really kind of antsy about this, but I told them I was retracing my steps in World War II. Didn't affect them a bit. I asked the oldest one, I said, were you in the war? And he said, yeah. And I said, what were you? I said, an anti-aircraft gunner. And I said, where were you? He said, Stuttgart. And I said, oh God, I'll never forget that way. Easter Sunday, April 1st, I didn't go any further. He held up two fingers. He was shooting at me. And from that point on, we became great friends. He came to the States 2 or 3 times and saw us. I went to Germany 2 or 3 times, saw him. And every New Year's Day, up until 2 years ago, we talked to each other to wish each other a Happy New Year. Great friends, great friends.
That's amazing, stuff like that. We're all just human, right? I mean, we're all just
What's
trying
that?
to get by.
Hmm?
We're just all humans, we're all trying to get by,
absolutely. Oh,
right?
it was great. It was a great friendship.
Very cool. What else we got? More questions, or?
Josh, you want to tell them how you started the research to find the name for the plane?
It mostly came down to the fact that
Mike.
Back here. So, you guys hear me? Yeah. It mostly came down to the fact that our aircraft came back with a fresh coat of paint from Oklahoma after its stint out there doing its inspection. And it came back with nothing on the side of it after being called Global Warrior, which has been on there for about 20 years, 15, 20 years. And the old people that named it before me retired and moved on, did other things. And 35 was the first aircraft I was officially assigned to. I've been hopping around other jets for 2 years before I actually got my name on 35. And I just wanted something that actually had meaning behind it. Other guys have had one-offs, the 38 special, other things like that were specific to them, the crew at the time. But me being a kid that didn't really go out much, watched History Channel and a lot of old World War II stuff, I wanted something that really harmoned back to everything that happened back then, and the amount of lives and commitment it took for all those people to do what they did. And hearing the story of Flak made after the fact, after I found it, first and foremost, I just thought that this was just neat. It was just a really nice design, and I loved it, and I just love the simplicity of it. And current Air Force, you can't have pinups or anything like that anymore. So it was basic. It had plain colors. It was perfect. No one could be offended by it. And of course, the name harbored back to this being kind of snarky and like sarcastic. Like, yeah, we get shot at, so what? And learning more about the history and knowing the fact that it never got shot down. It got hit, caught on fire, people shot at, holes thrown into it, but it always came back. And everyone that flew on it came back. And that's what I wanted. Mostly because flying aircraft is scary. Anything can happen. If you're shot at, you're doing training, anything. We've lost B-52s just to dumb luck. We had one that got shot by lightning and blew a hole in the tail. Luckily, that thing came back. But having that name basically gave it some superstitious power, at least for me, knowing the fact that that name's going to live on, and hopefully, as long as that name's on there, every pilot, every crew member, and anyone that steps off and goes in the air is going to come back on that plane. And honestly, that's the biggest part of it. That's what I wanted.
You guys know what Flak looks like? You ever seen Flak?
On
This
Old
couple
Boat.
right here might show you some later. When you get a minute, just ask them. They got some right there in their bag.
We've got it.
Actually from the airplane. Their dad flew it.
That's awesome. Anyone else?
If nothing else, we can, I guess, take a break before our next speaker comes in, which we'll see what happens here. Yeah, another restroom break. Thank these guys again. Great round of applause. We'll see them at dinner.
Well,